Hello and welcome to this chat view with Barbara Stepp and the English sisters. Hello, Barbara. Hello, Barbara.
Hello, English sisters.
What an honour it is for us to be able to share this call with you. Yes, really. We are really, truly honoured. We are indeed. Yes, it's wonderful, it's marvellous to actually be able to talk to you and for all our friends to actually be able to see you like this live. You know, even though it's recorded, but it's still, you know, it's interactive. Yeah. It's gorgeous, isn't it? It's gorgeous. It's modern technology for you. Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful.
And I'm also very honoured to be interviewed by the famous English sisters.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. We need to have a pee after that. A little drink. We were watching those marvellous videos that Michael Stepp published the other day on the YouTube channel, and it was just amazing to see Dr. Dave Dobson at work, because we'd never actually seen him before. We'd heard a lot about him, yes, but in our studies, but we hadn't actually seen him, you know, on video.
Yeah, Michael has worked very hard on those. He is the one that's taking our thousands of video and audio of Dave's work and creating a product for it, or something that people can be able to see, experience, because of course he's not with us anymore.
No,
so right. And then I do the fun shops because that's what he wanted me to do, so that's what we do.
Oh, that's so lovely. It's so lovely.
We have some wonderful things coming up. One of them is Dave teaching no-fault psychology and other than conscious communication at a Tony Robbins seminar a long time ago. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we'd actually read about that somewhere, hadn't we? And we were wondering where the footage was, because we thought that would be really interesting. That would be lovely, to show the world. So is that going to be a product then? Are you going to develop that into a set of videos or something?
We're not exactly sure yet because, as I said, we have thousands of hours, and Michael has downloaded already probably 1,000 hours of Dave's work. So we have a whole history and a whole archive of everything in his work. And the pain alleviation book, even Richard helped me with that. Richard proofread it for me, and then Richard wrote a piece in the book about Dave. So
that's Richard Bandler. Yeah. Richard Bandler. Yes, we saw the introduction. Yeah, we saw the introduction. We were looking on your website today, and we saw that was written by Richard Bandler. Yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? It is. So sweet. It's truly wonderful that, you know, Dr. Dave Dobson's voice can go with so many people. They can actually hear that marvellous voice that he has. It's so soothing and comforting just to be able to hear it. It's such a gift for the world, really and truly a gift. And it's also lovely to have you here, you know, as an heir. Just an heiress. Yes, to his work, to his legacy. And this is especially, it's you know, would you like to tell us a little bit about this other than conscious communication?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Because that's so interesting.
I can begin at the beginning.
Right.
That originally what happened was Dave was a psychologist. He was a PhD. But in psychology, he learned all these things, and he was helpful to his clients. But he began to realize that there needed to be more, because he was a Freudian, and that's what they taught during that time was Freudism, which is about the fact that nothing is ever your responsibility. It's always someone else to blame, mother, father, teacher, whatever.
Yeah.
So Dave came up in 1970 with no-fault psychology. Yeah. And in no-fault psychology, what we believe is that it's not your mother's fault, it's not your father's fault, or teacher's fault. It's not even your fault. It's nobody's fault. And it's okay as human beings to just simply say, okay, I messed up. Next, I'm going to do something different next time. And so that's the basis of no-fault psychology. And other than conscious communication is actually a part under the umbrella of no-fault psychology. Other than conscious communication is simply about being able to, and it is very simple, being able to pay attention to other than conscious behavior. That is everything but words. Only words are really conscious. Even Noam Chomsky said that.
Yeah.
So the idea is to be able to learn things about ourselves, begin to start, to continue, to actually be able to outgrow limiting patterns and be able to develop new ones that are more productive and more useful. And that's really the purpose. Dave always said, and I do now as well, when people ask him, what you do for a living, he would say, I'm a dehypnotist.
That's good, yeah. Yeah, waking people up out of trance. Yeah.
Right, because he said most of us have been really skilled at hypnotizing ourselves into believing that we have beliefs that are limiting. And the job of a dehypnotist is to help them get out of that trance and be able to build beliefs that are more useful and more productive. Dave didn't use words like good, bad, wrong, right. He said it had no place in our language. He would say we can appreciate our other than conscious mind. We can appreciate what you're saying. It's very difficult, and even Richard mentions understand is really not accurate. You've heard Richard say, well, how about let's just overstand?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So it's hard for me to understand either of you, and it's hard for you to understand me because each of us has our own experience file, and I can't have your experiences, and you can't have mine. But we can appreciate that they are yours. So with other than conscious communication, there's so many things, resources within it that can be used to begin to move in a direction that we want to move in, to be able to become more creative, recognize other than conscious patterns, and begin to tweak them, adjust them a little bit. It's not our goal to help people get rid of a belief. It's our goal to simply be, as Dave said, a facilitator. Because the client does the work, the student does the work. I'm just a tour guide. That's all I am. And that's all he was as well.
Wow, that's marvelous. Wow. That's marvelous. Yeah, we thought it was interesting as well in the video what Dr. Dave said about the fact that, people actually pick up the other than conscious communication before the verbal communication. He said, as humans, that's what we do. And we were actually already noticing that, weren't we? Even in our own behaviours, we were saying, oh yes, we were appreciating it. And we were thinking, wow, and that this is just after watching one of his videos. We've already taken that with us.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great thing because Dave often said the most important thing, in fact, that's one of the last things he said to me before he left this earth. He said to me, sweetie, the most important thing in life is awareness.
Awareness.
Remember that, it's awareness. And so the fact that you began to notice patterns that were incongruent, which what Dave meant by that was our language, our words don't match our other than conscious behavior. And the other than conscious mind is not the least bit rational, and it's not proactive. It's very literal and it's very obedient. So we want to be careful the language we use. We want to be careful what we ask for, because your other than conscious mind will do whatever you ask. So you can direct your other than conscious mind to go in a certain place. And it's as simple as that. This is a very simple technology. It's not complicated at all.
No. It's very simple. Its simplicity is what's
can almost seem difficult for some people because it's so simple that they say, hey, you know, this is just...
How can it be that simple?
How can it be so simple? Well, it is. This is it, you know. And
yes.
Yeah, that's right. And it's
they spoke of that a lot because so many of us, as human beings, we like to complicate things.
Yes.
We spend a lot of time with the left brain.
Yeah.
Even the 2-time Nobel Prize winner, gentleman who said once that with our focus on left brain attention, we're going to be developing in the next generation a whole generation of people who are walking around and literally tilted to the left.
Oh, gosh.
And the gentleman's name, by the way, was Linus Pauling. He's quite famous.
Yes, he is. Goodness gracious me.
Well, that's a thought, isn't it?
So, I'll answer any questions you'd like me to, or tell you a little bit more about.
Well, we would just love you just to have a little chat with us about everything, because we're just finding this so fascinating.
Yes.
We know your book is going to be published by our publisher, Oriana Stiano, De La in Mind. You're actually having that translated into Italian, Dr. Dave Dobson's book. Is that the one on alleviating pain?
Yes. Pain alleviation. He was an expert at that because many years ago, what he did was he did a trial thing, actually. It was kind of an accident in a way. But one of the doctors in Sherman Oaks Hospital in California, it's a really great hospital for burn, asked him to come in and just have a talk, a simple talk with one of his patients who had about 90% burns over his entire body.
Oh my goodness.
So Dave went in and just sat down with him and very comfortably just had a little talk with him. And the next thing you know, the burn patient was taking 1 Tylenol a day.
Goodness gracious me.
So when that happened, he was invited into the hospital and he took care of all the burn patients for years before he actually retired and moved to San Juan Island. He was an expert on pain, Dave was, because he had a lot of physical pain himself, and an interesting history that built up to all the things that have to do with no-fault psychology and other than conscious communication.
Right.
In fact, Dave was already doing hypnosis and magic, by the way. I have pictures of him as a child with his top hat on and his...
there you go. So
and his little tuxedo and all that.
Oh, gosh.
He began to do that in 1946. He was only 16 years old.
Wow.
So he's done hypnosis for that long, and then he developed other than conscious communication around 1970. And I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but in the United States, there's a prestigious group called the Magic Castle. That's professional magicians who are really very good at magic. And Dave was a member of that, basically a charter member of that.
Oh my goodness. So he was a magician as well as a hypnotherapist, and
yes.
so many things. Gosh.
Oh, and that's not the half of it. I think you read in the book where Richard wrote the foreword and said that Dave had been in these military crashes, several plane crashes. Dave's a pilot, by the way, as am I.
As well.
Yes, we've seen pictures of you. We've seen the video on YouTube.
So you really can fly. Wow.
Thanks to Dave.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
Not before I met Dave. No.
Wow.
So anyway, what he also did, we'll just talk about a little bit of his background, how it came to create this.
That'd be interesting.
Is number one, he was in 2 military plane crashes, one at the North Pole. Number 2, he was at a B-17 when he was in the military. And the plane he fell asleep on the plane, and the plane lost altitude from 21,000 feet down to about 135 feet. And when it did, because he couldn't equalize, it blew out his eardrums.
Oh,
So if you notice in the video, there are these hearing aids and there's this little wire that comes across. That's because he had about 20% hearing in this ear and none in this one. So this was a microphone, and this was the ear that he could hear in. And he went through that for years. Even by the time he left this earth, he could hear very little. But so that's part of his experience. He was in the military twice, and then when he was mustered out of the military, it was in Fairbanks, Alaska. So instead of coming back to Oregon, where he was from, what he did was he just stayed in Fairbanks, and he became a U.S. Marshal in Fairbanks, Alaska. So he had an amazing, amazing background. He was a pilot for 40 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of what caused it to be, that and the fact that he realized that Freudism didn't work. Right. There needed to be something easier, something more helpful to the client. And Dave was a very caring person. He really considered himself to be a people helper, as do I. So, and the reason we got together is that he said to me, because I had known him for years, he said to me, give me 1 year of your life and I'll make you a better therapist than I am. Oh. And I went, okay.
Yes,
why would I not take an offer like that, right?
Wow.
So do you have any questions for me?
Wow.
We're just taking this.
We're processing it. It's such a lovely story.
If you notice, Dave was very comfortable and relaxed about everything he did. Nothing was stressful. No, he didn't believe we humans should put that much stress on ourselves. So that's the way we both teach, in a relaxed, comfortable atmosphere.
That's
so lovely. Yes, we read on your website that when you actually do trainings, when you do the fun shops, you always give one-to-one attention. It's very relaxed and
small
fun.
Groups.
You know, that must be amazing, because you really, you know, I can imagine that one just comes away from that just being it changes your life completely.
Yeah.
It is amazing how many changes we've seen in students and with clients. It really warms the heart.
It does.
It does. You can really feel it.
Because our objective is to help our client, right? That's the most important thing to us, or our student. And I want you to understand or appreciate one particular point, and that is that when you're sitting, just imagine you're sitting in the room with me now, okay?
Yeah.
And you can realize that you're sitting with the best hypnotist on the planet.
Right.
And that hypnotist is behind your belly button. I'm not the hypnotist, and Dave said he wasn't the hypnotist. What we do is facilitate you to do your own work, so you are your own best hypnotist. And oftentimes when clients come in to see us, of course, they're in a trance that is limiting. They're in a trance that doesn't give them what they want. And our job is to dehypnotize them so they can choose a better trance to live in and to be more productive, more useful, happier. As simple as that.
So you basically, you empower them. You empower them. You give them...
Well, I give them tools. We give them tools and resources. We show them how to do it so that they begin to learn how to clean up their language. They begin to learn how to pay attention and be aware of the other than conscious mind and build that connection. Because in truth, everything is other than conscious. If you stop to think about this, when we're born, we're perfect. And the only fears we have are fear of falling and fear of loud noises. Every other fear is a learned one. Yes. Every fear is something that we pick up along the way or choose, probably other than consciously. And when we're a child, if let's say there's this baby that's a day old, if I leaned over to the baby and I said to the baby, fire, what do you suppose the baby would do? We go, oh yeah, fire, I get that. So,
it's just a word, yeah.
because Dave says we live by reference. We can connect with what we know, right? The baby will eventually grow, and by the time the baby is about 6 years old, he already has a vocabulary of over 400 words, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the time he's 7, his patterns or her patterns have been set.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, if we think about that for a moment, and Dave has often said this, what happens to us as we grow up? I meant Richard. What happens to us as we grow up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens is we're helpless.
Right.
We're helpless. Even at the age of 2 or 3, if we notice something's not quite right in this family or household, it's not as if we can go out and get a job, get our own apartment, get a car, and take care of ourselves. What children do during that period is Dave says they adapt and survive.
Yeah, that's right.
So they begin to build patterns as a child that keep them at least feeling like they're safe, so that they can fit into this strange world that they've just brought into. What happens to us human beings is that everything we learn other than consciously. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things we simply relegate to our other than conscious mind. So as we continue to grow up, these patterns of behavior that we used as a 2, a 3, a 5-year-old, we grow up with those patterns because we humans don't like change.
No.
And if we find something that works, we hang on to it.
Yeah.
It's the human condition.
Yeah.
Even though we're changing all the time, it's so paradoxical.
Sure. Sometimes against our own will, we change.
Yeah.
But the point is that what happens is we bring those, and we see often a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 60-year-old person who is still utilizing behaviors from childhood that are not productive now. Mm-hmm. As Dave often said, when you were a baby, and I was a baby, we probably wore diapers. Now, I don't know what you call them. We call them diapers in the U.S. You call them nappies?
Nappies.
Okay. Now, do you suppose when we were a baby and we wore them, do you suppose we ever, made a mess in them? Do you suppose we ever
Yes, I suppose we did.
Yeah. And was that productive? Was that how it's supposed to be?
Yes.
At the time, that behavior was really productive, and it fit. The baby was beginning to learn how to control all his bodily functions, or her bodily functions. Okay. Now then, and of course, as the baby began to grow, he began to develop new patterns, learn how to do new things. In actuality, when the baby or toddler begins to walk, whether it's 8 months or whether it's 12 months, that baby gets up, stands on its little feet, and uses 600 muscles to simply walk across a room.
Amazing.
That's amazing, you think about it.
Yeah.
And as Dave often said, well, how could he do that? Because he couldn't name all the muscles. It's because it's the other than conscious mind, not the conscious mind, that causes this to happen. So part of what Dave wanted people to learn was that these patterns that may not be productive at our age right now can be outgrown, and we teach in the Fun Shop how you're able to do that. Because truth be known, some of these patterns are not that useful, maybe just downright unproductive, okay? And let's say you came to my office, and you stepped inside my office, you're a client of mine, and you were wearing a diaper, okay? And then you came and sat down in my office in the change chair or the trance chair, and you proceeded to mess all over my chair in your diaper. Think that would be productive? You think that's appropriate behavior for the age of 20 or 30?
No.
Well, no.
Unless you can't.
No, it isn't.
It isn't. No.
And as Dave said, he uses that as a metaphor for the fact that imagine how many patterns that we have kept with us from childhood, we grow up with, that tend to limit us in some way. So our point is to help people begin to outgrow those limitations and begin to develop new ones. And that's what we teach people how to do in our fun shop. One of my students just mentioned that of all the things she's done with me and a lot of other people, that to her the most important thing was what she learned in the fun shop. Because she said it's not about techniques or what you do to people. It's not about learning all these, skills and techniques to do things. It's a complete way of living.
That's right. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yes, we understand.
We understand.
We
understand. We appreciate.
We're going to use this new
or appreciate.
We can appreciate that.
It is.
We can appreciate that fully. Yes. So you teach them to outgrow certain patterns just as they outgrew their clothes when they were very little, and they would no longer fit in the little pajama with the teddy bear. You teach them to outgrow that, and you have to let go of that little pajama and get a different one.
Yes.
We understand that. Yeah, we appreciate that very much. Yes.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for today, Barbara, because otherwise, with these Skype calls, we have the difficulty. Sometimes the line starts going.
They get a bit choppy.
Lovely and clear. So we're going to finish on this beautiful note.
Yes.
Aren't we?
Outgrow old patterns. With Barbara Stepp.
Yes. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And remember how easy it is to outgrow them. Just ask your other than conscious mind to help you notice when you're using a pattern that's inappropriate. And she'll absolutely help you to do that, because she exists in order for you, mine exists in order for me to become the most healthy, balanced, as Dave would say, critter we can be.
That's beautiful.
Oh, you're going to get a clap for that because we can't give you a hug. We'll give you a virtual hug.
Well, I'm sending you a hug.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you very much, Barbara.
Thank you so much. I could talk about this for hours.
Well,
we have time.
We'd love to have you back.
Yes, we would.
Another day. We would love to.
Okay, there's a lot of things that we can talk about, a lot of things that we can learn to do that are incredibly amazing. His work is beyond anything I could have ever imagined as being effective, comfortable, and easy. As Dave often said, we can learn how to be comfortably uncomfortable.
That's very good.
Thank you,
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.